Hello everybody, welcome to Spooky Locations number 7, I think. I'm in Seattle with my besties, Steven and Steph, and we are going through the top spooky locations in Seattle, Washington. I've never been before and we're lit. I'm actually refilming this because I was so tired last night, but yeah. Right now I'm sitting outside of where they have the underground tours, and I'm just kind of chilling out here, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the history of Seattle. Seattle is named after Chief Seattle, who was the chief of the Native American tribes, the Duwanish and the Suquamish. They all lived here before, white Midwestern men came over here and took the land. Late 1800s, people are trying to make the move west, and so they're just giving away land out here in order to try to get people to move out to the west. So there was this guy, Mr. Denny. He acquires this land where we're at right now. Even though it wasn't his land, that's just the American way. You start giving away land that you don't actually have. And he found this, he had this land, and he looked at it and noticed that there was like a flat piece of land, and then above it there were beautiful trees. Seattle is surrounded by beautiful wilderness. But he's from the Midwest, so he doesn't realize that it's just the tide has washed away, and that will be underwater when the tide comes in. So this idiot says, we're going to make it a logging town. So he starts doing this, and then when the tide comes in for the first time, washes it all away. He continues with the plan, and the beginnings of Seattle are created on beachland. So that's kind of where we are with our first spooky location, which is basically the underground of the remnants of downtown Seattle. So right now I'm in Pioneer Square downtown, and you'll notice on the sidewalks there are these little glass square purple windows. Those are skylights to the underground parts of this area, which actually used to be where the functioning areas of downtown Seattle were. So when the logging town started, this area was a hill where they would roll the logs down the hill, and they had a functioning town in this area. And then in 1889, the Great Fire of Seattle happened, and 30 blocks of this area were burned to the ground. At the time, like I said, the sea level was where the town was, and so they had flooding problems, they had sewage problems, and so the town took the opportunity with the Great Fire to rebuild the town, this downtown area. And so instead of, cleaning it out and building anew, they literally just reinforced the land and built everything on top of the old downtown Seattle. So when the underground area was still active, they would have ladders going from like the street to the downtown where the sidewalks were, and then up again to get to the like functioning second floor levels where the So I'm gonna put in footage from the tour that I took last night, where we were actually able to go underground and see the remnants of the old downtown Seattle that still exists today. And they had the skylights put in so that way the people that still had functioning businesses could get some sort of sunlight. It was really creepy and very informative. The underground is definitely haunted because so many people perished either through logging or trying to get around and falling down the ladders, etc., etc. It's spooky as fuck. And let's move on. So now that we know the history of the underground Seattle, we're going to go visit the first building that was built after the fire above the underground. And we're going to start talking about the Klondike Gold Rush, which is the reason why Seattle is so bustling today, was because of the mass influx of people when they heard that there was potentially gold in the Yukon, and people, thousands and thousands of people fled to Seattle, and that's why it is as bustling as it is today. I also want to say that something that I learned last night was that after the Great Fire, everybody pretty much lost their jobs, and the only reason that Seattle survived was because of the sex workers. They got so wealthy and then started giving out loans to people, and they've been completely erased from history, so that's the only reason why they were able to survive and be stable enough for this influx of people from the east that were coming to get potential gold is because of the sex workers. The woman, so the richest woman who had all these brothels, etc., her name was Mary Lou, and she's pretty much been erased from the history of Seattle because of the taboo surrounding it. And then the formal people who created Seattle, whatever, they didn't want it to be known that like a woman was giving out loans, and that is why they were able to rebuild from the fire. So right now I'm at the door of the Cadillac Hotel. It's definitely closed. So as I said before, this was the first building to be built after the Great Fire, and it was a popular spot for when the Klondike Gold Rush started. The men, the loggers, the enthusiasts thinking that they were going to get gold out in the Yukon, they came here. This hotel opened up in 1890. It was first called the Elliott House, and it had 59 rooms, and the upper floors and elevators is where most of the paranormal activity takes place. Loggers, fishermen, perhaps loading in from the sea, those are the ones that would come and hang out here. The most famous ghost known to be in this building is the one of the crying mother and child who can be heard at all hours of the day, crying, etc. It's said that during the Great Depression, the mother fell onto hard times, and she came here looking for respite and took her life and the life of her child in this building. So she cries all the time. The bottom floor of this building now is a museum for the Klondike Gold Rush. So yeah, many were lost in the wilderness, so their spirits also are still here. 70,000 people came to Seattle looking to find gold, and a lot of them died in the wilderness and were lost because they didn't know what the hell they were doing. Right behind me is the Arctic Club Hotel. Currently it's closed. It was a popular gathering place during the gold rush, so like the Cadillac Hotel, the spirits that haunt this place are mostly the spirits of the hopefuls trying to find gold in the gold rush and perished out in the wilderness. This was a spot that they gathered frequently. In this building, the most paranormal activity is on the 3rd and 4th floors. The club was established in 1908. It was meant for wealthy people to gather together in order to exchange land out in the Yukon and Alaska and hang out and reminisce on good times. The gorgeous ballroom mimics the Northern Lights, which is cool. I wish we could go in there. The building is plagued by its former visitors through disembodied footsteps and constant hints of cigar smoke, even though no one is smoking. In 1936, Democratic Congressman Marion Zionchek began his election campaign from a room on the 5th floor. I had to leave the area. It was way too loud. Anyways, Congressman Zionchek threw himself from the building for unknown reasons, and his ghost definitely haunts the building on the 5th floor, and sometimes the elevator will stop on the 5th floor for no reason. Super creepy. So right now we're on the backside of a large building called the Coleman Building, and inside of the Coleman Building there is this little Irish pub called Owl and Thistle. So this whole building has gone through so many owners over the years, and it's rumored because of the spirits. Can't keep an owner because people are tormented by the spirits. Specifically Owl and Thistle though. So we're still in downtown Seattle where that big fire happened, and this whole building is sitting on top of underground tunnels like before that used to be in use, used to be functioning businesses and then closed down. And those tunnels are definitely haunted. So it may be the spirits from those tunnels or otherwise, but there is a rumored ghost that plays the piano when the crowd is not super big. So I actually went and got food there last night, and it was like kind of a dead night, and I can confirm that I did not hear any piano, but I can also confirm that the service was really fast and the food was good. So I definitely recommend Owl and Thistle. Oh, also lots of service workers have quit working at Owl and Thistle because they've been like physically pushed, and obviously very creepy to be pushed while you're working. So I just took a bus 30 minutes south of like downtown Seattle. Now we're like literally in the middle of nowhere. This area is called Georgetown. It's like warehouse country, which makes sense for the next location. We are visiting a place called the Georgetown Morgue, and it was a functioning morgue for a very long time and a crematorium, and then it processed animal remains, and now it is a functioning haunted house, and it is the site of one of Seattle's most unsolved crimes. Okay, so behind me is the Georgetown Morgue, which is 43 years old, and through 4 ownerships have always dealt with business dealing with the dead. It's been a morgue, it's been a funeral home, it's been a crematorium, and now it is a for-profit haunted house. There's also now a little restaurant right here. So here it is right behind me. Some of the messed up stuff that's happened here: the second owner passed away in this building because there was a huge earthquake and half of the building collapsed in on him. So he died in here, and his spirit still probably haunts this place. But the tea is that a very recent thing that happened here is in the 70s, that when this was an embalming place or whatever you call it, a local jazz musician died, and when his body was being processed, the body was stolen, dismembered, and then strewn across his yard. So I don't know what was going on with that, but that's pretty messed up. And then the really recent and unsolved crime that happened here was when 9 workers were here working in the crematorium. 9 workers were here in the 1970s, and they were all forced into the crematorium, and they all passed away. There were no survivors, no witnesses, and it's still unsolved to this day. So that's the Georgetown Morgue, and it's super haunted. I'm sure they put on a pretty dope haunted house here, but just the fact that I know 9 people were sent to their deaths here, and it's unsolved, is super jarring. But yeah, that's the Georgetown Morgue. Here's the backside. Look at that spider. And you turn this way and you get a little bit of the Seattle skyline in the distance. So cool. Now we're going to visit our first theater on our list of spooky locations. We're back in the more populated areas of Seattle. We're a little more uptown, in the neighborhood known as the Pike Place area. And we're gonna go visit the Moore Theater. A lot of these locations say that they're the most haunted places in Seattle, so I don't really know which one is the most haunted, but this was one of them. So behind me is the Moore Theater. It's so haunted that ghost hunters have actually conducted investigations inside of this theater. Fun fact, it was built in 1907 on top of a cemetery, so that might help, bring some paranormal activity. This theater is rumored where Kurt Cobain, a member of Nirvana, overdosed. According to my research, he was found inside of his home in Seattle, but it is rumored that this is where he overdosed at a time. I don't know, maybe before, maybe right before he died in his home, or at another time he overdosed, but it's rumored that he did overdose in this theater. Also, in 1970, a group of employees at the Moore held a seance. Now I'm in front of the box office. In 1970, a few employees held a seance, and it said that after that happened, the paranormal activity kind of ramped up. The ghost of the founder of this theater, Mr. Moore, his ghost has been seen lurking around. and also a lot of female actors that have performed on the stage have been seen walking around. The constant smell of cigars is also smelled throughout the theater, and no one is smoking. And people just generally feel like they're being watched here. So that is the Moore Theater. There's the door. It's closed. So right now I'm standing in front of this building is Hotel Andra, probably. The Andra is a boutique hotel, as well as a cooking school led by Seattle's top chef Tom Douglas. In 1926, this hotel was built as the Claremont Hotel, and during the Depression era, a sweep of crime took the city. The hotel saw crime, suicide, and all havoc, especially on the 9th floor, all the way up there. 9th floor, a lot of stuff happened during that time. They had jazz parties and ignored prohibition, tisk tisk, dancing through the nights, and you can hear a jazz piano playing on the 9th floor especially. Guests also frequently complain of loud clattering as if there is a rave happening next door. They'll go to investigate the sounds only to find that there is no such party happening. It's the ghosts of the Prohibition era. A 1920s flapper girl has been seen walking the hallways of the 9th floor. Also, a woman dressed in 1930s garments has been seen sitting quietly at the end of guest beds staring into space, which is very scary. Also, in 1960, a female employee fell to her death. Some say it was a freak accident, but no one really knows to this day. So that is the Hotel Andra. Just a few hundred feet down the street from Hotel Andra, we find ourselves at the Mayflower Park Hotel. It is celebrating 95 years this year. First, it was built in 1927 as the Brogrosian Building. And then, this hotel was where the first daylight bar, called Oliver's Lounge, opened up in 1973. However, it is spooky and haunted. Whee! It's said to be haunted by an older man who lived and died on the 6th floor, has been seen watching guests sleep and floating from room to room. WTF. And then also on the 11th floor, specifically room 1120, a friendly ghost sometimes greets guests. He's also been known to trick the cleaning staff by removing the mop and bucket while they're cleaning. So, not terrible evil energy here, but still lots of paranormal activity happening at the Mayflower Park Hotel. So let's talk about the Pike Place Market. Arguably one of the most haunted places in Seattle, if not the state of Washington, and also one of the most popular. So I'm going to talk about it before we go there and put footage on top of this. But yeah, so when the white people came in and they wanted all the Native Americans to leave, Chief Seattle of the Duwanish Native Americans, they wanted them to leave, and his daughter, Princess Angeline, said, no thank you. So she lived out her days in a shack where the Pike Place Market is today. And no one really knows exactly where the shack existed, but her ghost haunts the entire market. You know it's her spirit because she's a very slow-moving spirit, as if her feet aren't touching the ground, and she's usually wearing a red cloak. Yeah, Princess Angeline made her life around making fabrics and clothing. So she sat in her little cabin and she made clothing for the rest of her life, refusing to leave the land that was rightfully her community's. And then when she passed away, that land was then turned into the Pike Place Market, which is haunted today. It's also haunted by one of the co-founders who died in 1954 and has been seen near a place called the Alibi Room, which is a bar and a dance floor. And people have said that he's asked if they need help with directions. Fun fact, this is the very first Starbucks in America. Look at that line. So, right next to the Great Gum Wall, if you find the gum wall, you found the alibi room. Right here. It's a bar and it's haunted by the co-founder of Pike's Place Market. There's inside. It's super closed right now, but yeah, generally someone will greet you at the door and it ends up being a ghost. And a little boy who died in the 1918 Spanish flu has been seen by the Merry Tales toy store and can be very mischievous and poltergeist-like, moving toys around and such. And then the Kells Irish Pub is within the Pike Place Market as well. And it used to be the Butterworth and Sons Mortuary. It was the country's first multi-purpose mortuary, and the door to get into the pub today is where they used to bring the bodies in. It was also the very first place in American history where coffins were sold. There are countless sightings in this building just because of the amount of dead people and spirits that moved throughout the building in its time. A young girl spirit, described as a prankster, is often seen wearing a scarlet velvet dress with red ringlet hair. Also, it's rumored that she died of the Spanish flu. And then Charlie, another ghost in the Kells Irish Pub, is an older gentleman seen wearing a hat, and he's only shown, you can only see him for moments before he disappears. And then the mother of the current owner of the pub also claims that she's been pushed down the stairs. So this building right here is the Kells Irish Pub now, and this entrance to the pub is where they used to bring in the bodies when it was a functioning mortuary, whatever you call it. So I didn't realize that this was the front of the Kells Irish Pub. So this front side is what matches up with all of the old photos of the mortuary. But the back side is what is used most frequently to enter, and that's where they brought in all the bodies. And this front entrance is where the front of the funeral home was, etc. The more that I walk around down here, look, there's the big Ferris wheel. I'm on the waterfront right now, and I just went to the aquarium for a little palate cleanser. And this whole city is built just on the absolute edge of a cliff.
And then you get
literally why? Why? Why did they do this? Oh guys, look at this beauty. Oh my god. This is the Hotel Sorrento. Hotel Sorrento. This strangely shaped hotel opened in 1909. It's famous for a ghost named Alice B. Toklas, something like that. However, she did not even die here. She died overseas years after she was a student in Seattle in the 1890s. She is wearing either white or black when her apparition is seen. And then she causes flickering lights, and she moves your drinks around while you are in the Dunbar room, which I assume is a bar, a little pub. She was a huge marijuana activist, fun fact, and was one of the first people known to make pot brownies. So that's Miss Alice, and she haunts this place. So let's get a little bit closer. Got a really nice courtyard out here too. Wow, go off Hotel Sorrento. Bye! So behind me is the Harvard Exit Theater. On this sign right here, you can see that it says, I'll turn it around, it says Harvard Exit, and then the signs over here, the green ones, say Women's Century Club. So this was a women's club. In 1925, the club originated here in this building. Before this building was built, there was a murder in the home that stood here before the Women's Century Club was built in 1925. So that could be why there are spirits now. And then it was rumored that between 1925 and then 1960, when the Women's Club stopped meeting here and then it became a theater, it said that one of the members of the club hung herself in this building. On several occasions, theater managers open the building to find films already playing, and then today it is an office space. There's also a ghost named Peter who is half solid and half translucent and is very social. There's also a woman in Victoria-era clothing who comes and goes. So that's the Harvard Exit Theater. I don't know if you can see those mountains out there, but holy crap, this view. Woo! This video does not do it justice. Oh my god. I'm trying to get it to focus up there. Can you see the mountains in the distance? Stay. Wow, it's so beautiful. So this behind me is the very closed now Canterbury Ale House. The tavern, once a food shop and a cafe, was home to a gruesome murder in 1978. The ghost can be seen in the mirror by the fireplace. So apparently if you look in that mirror and you see this guy with his head down and he looks up, he will apparently have no face because when he was murdered, he was shot in the face, and so then he lost his face. Back in the day when the jukebox was used, it would frequently turn on and off, and it would always play the Beatles song called The End, very morbid. And then also a large pentagram was found in the basement of this building, and it wasn't able to be washed off, so that maybe contributed to some of the paranormal activity. But yeah, it's super closed now, but I think people live inside there. But these doors used to like open up and it was like a big situation here. So that's the Canterbury Ale House, and it's closed. So now I'm in like a pretty big park, and apparently at the very top of this park there's a cemetery, and then at the tippy top of the cemetery there's a small Civil War memorial cemetery that is supposedly haunted. So let's go find it. And there's also like a beautiful lookout of the mountains up there, so we're gonna go check it out. So this very small portion of the Lakeview Cemetery is known as the Gar Cemetery, Grand Army Republic Cemetery. It's where 500 people are buried, and it is the site of Civil War victims. The soldiers of the war have been seen and heard crying and walking throughout the graves. So let's go take a look. I think I found some sort of performer. Great. Alright, so we are at our last spooky location. We're in West Seattle right now, where I'm staying, and behind me is the West Seattle High School, which is apparently haunted. In 1924, the story goes, a young girl named Rose Higginbotham hung herself in the halls of the school, and her spirit is said to walk around the school, and also there are like vast grounds around the school. Apparently you can see her apparition. She hangs out when it's like cloudy days and like days with heavy fog. But the catch is people went back in the archives of the school and the attendance and everything, and there was no girl named Rose Higginbotham. So who is this ghost? Everybody says that it's Rose Higginbotham, but we don't really know because apparently she never existed, or I don't know. Her existence has been wiped from the records. So yeah, that's West Seattle High School. And that's the end of my Seattle Spooky Locations tour. So thank you for coming. I've had a blast. It's been wonderful, educational, and all around, blissful. And happy Thanksgiving. See you next time.